"Sir, I can make your son walk again." The man turns around and freezes. Have you ever wondered what would happen if someone you never expected offered you the one thing you needed most in life? What if that person was just a child, and what if they had nothing to give except hope? On that faithful day, in a busy hospital parking lot, rain is falling softly. Richard is pushing a wheelchair with his young son inside. Suddenly, a small voice behind him says, "Sir, I can make your son walk again." The man turns around and freezes. Standing there is a 10-year-old girl with torn clothes, bare feet, and eyes that seem to hold wisdom far beyond her years. This homeless child just made a promise that doctors said was impossible. But how did we get to this moment? Well, 6 months earlier, life was perfect for the Henderson family. Richard Henderson was one of the richest men in the city. He owned 3 companies, lived in a mansion with 15 rooms, and had everything money could buy. His wife, Sarah, was beautiful and kind. But the light of their life was their 8-year-old son, Tommy. Tommy was the kind of child every parent dreams of having. He was smart, funny, and loved to run everywhere he went. "Dad, watch me," he would shout as he raced around their big backyard. Richard would smile and think to himself, "I am the luckiest man alive." But sometimes, life has a way of changing everything in just one moment. It was a Saturday morning. Richard was driving Tommy to his soccer practice. They were singing songs together in the car, laughing and having fun. Tommy was excited because his team had an important game that day. "Dad, do you think I'll score a goal today?" Tommy asked with bright eyes. "I know you will, son. You're the best player on the team," Richard replied, looking at his boy through the rearview mirror. Those were the last happy words they shared before everything changed. A drunk driver ran a red light and crashed straight into their car. The sound was terrible, metal crushing, glass breaking, and then silence. Richard woke up in the hospital 3 days later. The first thing he asked was, "Where is my son? Where is Tommy?" The doctor's face was serious. "Mr. Henderson, your son is alive, but—" The doctor paused, and Richard's heart stopped. "The accident damaged his spine. Tommy will never walk again." Have you ever received news that completely changed your world? How did you handle it? Let me know in the comments below. Money had always solved Richard's problems. Need a bigger house? Buy one. Want the best car? Get it. Business trouble? Hire the smartest lawyers. But now, for the first time in his life, Richard faced a problem his money couldn't fix. He took Tommy to every doctor in the country. He flew to different countries to meet the best specialists in the world. Each doctor said the same thing. "I'm sorry, Mr. Henderson. The damage is too severe. Your son will never walk again." Richard spent millions of dollars. He tried experimental treatments, new machines, and even treatments that weren't approved yet. Nothing worked. Tommy, who used to run and jump and play, now sat in a wheelchair all day. The boy who once filled their house with laughter became quiet and sad. He stopped smiling. He stopped talking much. He just sat by the window, watching other children play outside. "Why can't I walk like them, Dad?" Tommy asked one day, tears in his eyes. Richard's heart broke into a million pieces. He was the richest man in the city, but he felt like the poorest father in the world. Sarah, Tommy's mother, tried to stay strong, but Richard could see she was falling apart too. Their perfect family was breaking, and there was nothing Richard could do to fix it. Richard became angry. He was angry at the drunk driver, angry at the doctors who couldn't help, angry at God, and most of all, angry at himself for not being able to protect his son. He started working even more, thinking that if he made more money, somehow he could find a cure. He worked day and night, barely sleeping, barely eating. His other children started to worry about him too, but money couldn't buy what Tommy needed most. Money couldn't buy hope. While Richard was spending millions trying to heal his son, just a few miles away lived a little girl named Lucy. Lucy was 10 years old, the same age as Tommy would soon be. But Lucy's life was very different from Tommy's. Lucy lived on the streets. She had no parents, no home, no warm bed to sleep in. Her clothes were torn and dirty. She was often hungry and cold. Most people walked past her like she didn't exist. But Lucy had something special that money couldn't buy. She had a gift. Ever since she was very small, Lucy could do things that seemed impossible. When she touched sick animals, they got better. When she put her hands on people who were hurt, their pain went away. Lucy didn't understand how she could do these things. She just knew she could help. The other homeless people in the area knew about Lucy's gift. When someone was sick, they would bring them to Lucy. She would put her small hands on them, close her eyes, and somehow they would feel better. "Lucy has healing hands," the old homeless man named Joe would say. "That child is special." But Lucy was just a homeless girl. She had no family, no money, no fancy clothes. So when she tried to help people on the street, most ignored her. They thought she was just another beggar asking for money. Lucy learned to be careful about who she offered to help. Many people had been mean to her when she tried. They called her crazy or told her to go away. So she only helped when she was sure someone really needed it and might believe her. Lucy spent her days looking for food and a safe place to sleep. But she also spent time watching people, learning about their troubles, and wishing she could help more. She often saw families at the hospital nearby. She watched parents crying, children suffering, and families falling apart because of sickness. Lucy's heart would break for them, but she knew they would never listen to a homeless child. "If only they knew," Lucy would whisper to herself. "If only they would give me a chance." Remember, kindness doesn't need money or fancy clothes. Sometimes the biggest hearts come in the smallest packages. For months, Richard took Tommy to the hospital for physical therapy. The doctors said it wouldn't make Tommy walk again, but it might help keep his muscles strong. Every Tuesday and Thursday, Richard would drive to the hospital, feeling more hopeless each time. Tommy had stopped trying to be brave. He barely spoke during these visits. He just sat in his wheelchair, looking tired and sad. Richard felt like he was losing his son a little more each day. On this particular Thursday, it was raining. Richard was feeling especially sad because it had been exactly 6 months since the accident. He was pushing Tommy's wheelchair from the hospital to their car, thinking about how different their lives had become. As they walked through the parking lot, Richard was thinking about all the money he had spent, all the doctors he had seen, all the hope he had lost. He felt like giving up. Tommy hadn't said a word during the whole visit. Richard looked down at his son and saw tears in his eyes. "I'm sorry, Dad," Tommy whispered. "I'm sorry I can't walk anymore." Richard's heart shattered. He stopped walking and knelt down next to the wheelchair. "Tommy, this is not your fault. You have nothing to be sorry for. I love you no matter what." "But I know you're sad, Dad. I know you wish I could run again," Tommy said softly. Richard was about to answer when he heard a small voice behind him. "Sir, I can make your son walk again." Richard turned around and froze. There, standing in the rain, was a little girl. She looked about Tommy's age, but she was so thin and small that she seemed younger. Her clothes were torn and wet. Her feet were bare. Her hair was messy and unwashed. But her eyes were bright and full of something Richard hadn't seen in months. Hope. "What did you say?" Richard asked, his voice shaking. The little girl stepped closer. She wasn't afraid, even though Richard was a big man in an expensive suit. "I said I can make your son walk again, sir. I have healing hands. I can help him." If you were Richard in this moment, what would you think? Would you believe a homeless child, or would you think she was crazy? Tell me your honest thoughts in the comments. Richard stared at the little girl for a long moment. His first thought was anger. How dare this child give his son false hope? Didn't she know how much Tommy had already suffered? Didn't she know how much they had all suffered? "Little girl, you don't understand," Richard said firmly. "My son has a serious injury. The best doctors in the world have told us there's no cure. Please don't say things like that." But Lucy didn't back down. She looked straight at Tommy, who was watching her with curious eyes. "What's your name?" she asked the boy. "Tommy," he replied quietly. "Hi, Tommy. I'm Lucy. I know the doctors told you that you can't walk, but they don't know everything. I can help you if you want me to try." Richard was getting upset. "Look, little girl, I don't know what game you're playing, but—" "Dad," Tommy interrupted. There was something different in his voice. "What if she's telling the truth?" Richard looked at his son. For the first time in months, Tommy's eyes had a spark in them. Could Richard take that away from him again? Lucy knelt down next to Tommy's wheelchair, getting her knees wet on the cold pavement. "Tommy, can I put my hands on your legs? It won't hurt, I promise. I just want to try to help." Richard wanted to say no. This was crazy. This homeless girl couldn't do what the best doctors in the world couldn't do. But Tommy was looking at him with hopeful eyes, and Richard couldn't bear to crush that hope. "Please, Dad," Tommy asked. Richard sighed. "Okay, but just for a minute, then we need to go home." Lucy smiled, the first real smile Richard had seen from any child in months. She gently placed her small, dirty hands on Tommy's legs through his pants. "Close your eyes, Tommy," Lucy said softly. "Think about running and playing and having fun." Lucy closed her eyes too. Her hands began to feel warm, then warmer. Tommy's eyes went wide. "Dad, I can feel something," Tommy whispered. Richard's heart started beating fast. "What do you mean?" "My legs, they feel warm and tingly, like when your foot falls asleep and then wakes up." Lucy kept her hands on Tommy's legs. She was concentrating very hard. Small beads of sweat appeared on her forehead, even though it was cold and raining. Suddenly, Tommy gasped, "Dad, I can feel my legs. I can really feel them." Richard couldn't believe what he was hearing. For 6 months, Tommy hadn't been able to feel anything below his waist. The doctors said the nerves were completely damaged. "Try to move your toes, Tommy," Lucy said quietly, her eyes still closed. Tommy looked down at his feet. He concentrated as hard as he could, and then his left big toe moved. Just a little bit, but it moved. Richard fell to his knees in the parking lot, not caring that his expensive suit was getting wet and dirty. "Tommy, your toe, it moved." Other people in the parking lot started to notice what was happening. A small crowd began to gather, but Lucy didn't pay attention to them. She kept her hands on Tommy's legs and kept concentrating. "Now try to move your whole foot," Lucy whispered. Tommy tried. His foot moved slightly. Both feet now. Both of Tommy's feet moved. The crowd around them was getting bigger. People were whispering and pointing. Some were taking pictures with their phones. "Lucy," Tommy said, his voice full of excitement. "It's working. I can move my feet." But Lucy looked tired. Her face was pale, and she was breathing hard. Healing took a lot of energy out of her small body. "One more thing, Tommy," Lucy said. "Try to stand up." Do you believe in miracles? Have you ever seen something happen that seemed impossible? Share your story in the comments. Richard couldn't breathe. His son was about to try to stand up for the first time in 6 months. Tommy put his hands on the sides of his wheelchair and pushed. Slowly, very slowly, he began to lift himself up. "I can do it, Dad. I can feel my legs holding me up." Tommy stood up from his wheelchair. He was shaky and weak, but he was standing. The crowd around them started cheering and clapping. Lucy smiled, but she looked very tired. "Try to take a step, Tommy." Tommy looked scared. "What if I fall?" "I'll catch you, son," Richard said, standing up and opening his arms. Tommy took a deep breath. He lifted his right foot and put it forward, then his left foot. He was walking. It wasn't perfect, and he needed to hold on to his dad for support, but Tommy Henderson was walking again. The crowd erupted in cheers. People were crying tears of joy. Some were recording everything on their phones. Others were calling their friends and family to tell them about the miracle they had just witnessed. Richard was crying so hard he could barely see. He hugged his son tightly. "Tommy, you're walking. You're really walking." Tommy was crying too, but they were happy tears. "I can walk, Dad. Lucy did it. She really did it." Richard turned to thank Lucy, but she was sitting on the ground, looking very weak and pale. "Lucy, are you okay?" Richard asked, kneeling down next to her. "I'm just tired," Lucy said with a weak smile. "Healing takes a lot of energy, but I'm happy I could help Tommy." Richard looked at this little homeless girl who had just given him back his son. She had nothing, but she had given them everything. "Lucy, how can I ever thank you? You've given me my son back. You've given our family hope again. What can I do for you?" Lucy was quiet for a moment. "I don't need anything, sir. I'm just happy Tommy can walk again." But Richard could see that Lucy needed everything. She was homeless, hungry, and alone. This child who had just performed a miracle had nowhere to sleep tonight. "Lucy, you're not going back to the streets. You're coming home with us." Lucy's eyes went wide. "Really? You want me to come with you?" "Lucy, you're part of our family now. Any person who can do what you just did, who has a heart as kind as yours, belongs with people who will love and take care of her." Tommy, who was still amazed that he could stand, walked over to Lucy and took her hand. "Please come with us, Lucy. I want you to be my sister." And sometimes, kindness creates a circle. When we help others, they help us back. When we open our hearts, amazing things can happen. The news of Tommy's healing spread quickly. By the next day, videos of Lucy helping Tommy walk were all over the internet. News reporters came to Richard's house. Doctors wanted to study what had happened. Scientists couldn't explain it. But Richard only cared about two things. His son was walking, and Lucy now had a family. Richard and Sarah officially adopted Lucy. They gave her a beautiful room in their mansion, bought her new clothes, and enrolled her in the best school in the city. But more importantly, they gave her love. Lucy had never had a real family before. She had never had her own bed, her own toys, or parents who read her bedtime stories. She cried happy tears every night for weeks. "I can't believe this is my life now," Lucy told Sarah one evening as Sarah was brushing her hair. "You deserve all of this and more, sweetie," Sarah replied. "You saved our family. You brought hope back into our lives when we had lost all hope." Tommy and Lucy became best friends. Tommy helped Lucy learn to read better, and Lucy helped Tommy get stronger every day. They played together, laughed together, and were truly like brother and sister. But Lucy's gift didn't disappear. Word spread about the homeless girl who could heal people. Every day, families came to the Henderson house, asking Lucy to help their sick children. Richard and Sarah were worried at first. They didn't want Lucy to feel like she had to use her gift all the time. They wanted her to be a normal child too. "Lucy, you don't have to help everyone," Richard told her one day. "You can just be a kid. You can play and go to school and have fun." But Lucy shook her head. "Dad, I want to help people. It makes me happy when I can take away someone's pain. But now I have you and Sarah and Tommy to take care of me, so I'm not scared anymore." So the Henderson family started a foundation. They built a special place where Lucy could help sick children, but they made sure she also had time to be a normal kid. Lucy went to school, made friends, played sports, and did all the things other children do. But a few times a week, she would use her gift to help families who had lost hope, just like the Hendersons had. Remember, when we use our gifts to help others, we find our true purpose in life. 1 year later, Richard was a different man. He still ran his companies, but now he also ran the Lucy Henderson Foundation for Healing. They had helped hundreds of families. More importantly, Richard learned that the most valuable things in life can't be bought with money. Love, hope, kindness, and family are worth more than all the riches in the world. Tommy was not only walking, but running and playing soccer again. He was happier than he had ever been, and not just because he could walk. He was happy because he had learned what it meant to have someone sacrifice for you and what it meant to be grateful. "Dad," Tommy said one day, "I'm glad the accident happened." Richard was shocked. "Tommy, why would you say that?" "Because if it hadn't happened, we never would have met Lucy. And Lucy is the best sister anyone could ask for. Our family is better now than it was before." Richard realized his son was right. Sometimes the worst things that happen to us lead to the best things in our lives. Sarah often said that Lucy didn't just heal Tommy's legs, she healed their whole family. And Lucy grew up to become a doctor. She studied medicine and learned how to combine her special gift with medical knowledge. She opened hospitals for poor children and helped thousands of families. But she never forgot where she came from. Every week, she would go back to the streets where she used to live and help the homeless people there. She would bring them food, clothes, and medical care. "I was once homeless and hungry," Lucy would tell her medical students. "I know what it feels like to be ignored and forgotten. That's why we must always treat every patient with kindness, no matter who they are or where they come from." Years passed, and the story of Lucy and Tommy became famous around the world. People would travel from different countries just to meet the girl with healing hands and the boy who learned to walk again. But the most important part of their story wasn't the miracle. It was the lesson about kindness. Richard often spoke at conferences about what he learned. "I was rich, but I was poor in the ways that mattered most," he would say. "I thought money could solve every problem, but the solution to my biggest problem came from a homeless child who had nothing to give except kindness." Tommy became a teacher. He wanted to help children learn and grow. He would tell his students, Never judge people by what they look like or what they have. The person who seems the least likely to help you might be the person who changes your life forever. Lucy, now Dr. Lucy Henderson, would often say in her speeches, "I was just a homeless girl who wanted to help. I had no money, no home, no family, but I had kindness in my heart, and that was enough to change everything." The Henderson family learned that kindness is the most powerful force in the world. It can heal bodies, mend hearts, and bring families together. They learned that help can come from the most unexpected places. Sometimes the person who saves you is the person you would never think to look at twice. They learned that when you help others, you help yourself. When Richard and Sarah opened their home to Lucy, they didn't just give her a family. She gave them hope, joy, and a new purpose in life. And most importantly, they learned that everyone has something valuable to offer, no matter how small or poor or forgotten they might seem. Think about your own life. Is there someone you might have overlooked who could use your kindness? Or is there someone unexpected who has shown you kindness? I'd love to hear your story. Today, the Lucy Henderson Foundation has helped over 10,000 families. They have built hospitals, schools, and homes for homeless children. But their biggest achievement is spreading the message of kindness around the world. Lucy, now a grown woman, is married and has children of her own. She still has her healing gift, and she still uses it to help people. But she has also trained other doctors and nurses to combine medical treatment with compassion and kindness. Tommy is now a father himself. He teaches his children the same lesson Lucy taught him, that everyone deserves kindness, and everyone has something valuable to offer. Richard and Sarah are grandparents now. They spend their time supporting the foundation and telling their story to anyone who will listen. But the most amazing part of their story is how it has inspired millions of other people around the world to perform their own acts of kindness. People who heard their story started helping homeless children in their own cities. Families began adopting children who had nowhere to go. Rich people started using their money to help those in need, instead of just buying more things for themselves. Doctors began treating poor patients with the same care they gave to rich patients. Teachers started paying special attention to the students who seemed invisible or forgotten. The ripple effect of one homeless girl's kindness has spread across the entire world. As I finish telling you this incredible story, I want you to remember something important. This story isn't just about Lucy's special healing gift. Most of us don't have the power to make paralyzed people walk again, but every single one of us has the power to be kind. Every one of us has the power to notice people who are hurting and offer help. Every one of us has the power to look beyond someone's appearance and see their heart. Every one of us has the power to turn away from selfishness and choose compassion instead. The real miracle in this story wasn't that Tommy learned to walk again. The real miracle was that a homeless child chose to offer help instead of asking for it. The real miracle was that a rich man learned to value love more than money. The real miracle was that a broken family became whole again through the power of kindness. Lucy could have walked past Tommy and Richard that day. She could have thought, "These rich people don't need my help." She could have been bitter about her own hard life and ignored other people's problems, but she chose kindness instead. Richard could have ignored Lucy or told her to go away. He could have thought, "This dirty homeless girl can't help my son." He could have let his prejudice and pain make him cruel, but he chose to give her a chance. And that choice changed everything. In our world today, we often hear about people being mean to each other. We hear about selfishness, greed, and cruelty. But this story reminds us that kindness is more powerful than all of those things. One act of kindness can change a life. One act of kindness can heal a family. One act of kindness can inspire millions of other people to be kind too. You don't need money to be kind. You don't need special powers to be kind. You don't need to be famous or important to be kind. You just need to care about other people and be willing to help when you can. Maybe you can't heal someone's broken spine, but you can help heal their broken heart with a kind word. Maybe you can't adopt a homeless child, but you can volunteer at a homeless shelter. Maybe you can't build a hospital, but but you can visit someone who is sick and lonely. Maybe you can't change the whole world, but you can change someone's day by showing them kindness. The world needs more people like Lucy, people who look for ways to help instead of ways to get help. The world needs more people like the new Richard Henderson, people who are willing to change their hearts and open their homes to those in need. The world needs more families like the Hendersons became, families that understand that love is more important than money and that helping others is the secret to true happiness. After hearing this story, what is one act of kindness you will do this week? It doesn't have to be big or expensive. It just has to come from your heart. Tell me in the comments below what you plan to do, and then come back next week and let me know how it went. Let's start a kindness challenge together. Remember, you might be just one person, but to someone else, you might be their miracle. You might be their Lucy. And who knows, maybe the person you help today will be the person who helps you tomorrow. That's the beautiful circle of kindness. It always comes back. So go out there and be someone's miracle. The world is waiting for your kindness. Thank you for watching, and remember to subscribe for more inspiring stories that will touch your heart and change your life. Like this video if Lucy's story inspired you, and share it with someone who needs to hear about the power of kindness today. Until next time, keep spreading kindness wherever you go. You never know whose life you might change forever.